Good morning, students. In today's lecture, we would be discussing about the anatomy of the third ventricle. So, the third ventricle is a cleft in between the two thalami. It is located in the midline, so it is a median cleft. It is the cavity of the diencephalon. Diencephalon is the division of the forebrain. It is located in between the telencephalon and the midbrain. The telencephalon includes the cerebral cortex, the hippocampus, the basal nuclei, and the diencephalon includes structures like thalamus, hypothalamus, epithalamus, and subthalamus. And third ventricle is the cavity of the diencephalon. So, major part of the cavity represents or is developmentally part of the diencephalon. Only the area that is in front of the interventricular foramen is derived from the median part of the telencephalon. The entire cavity is lined by ependyma, the neuroglial cells responsible for the synthesis, secretion of the cerebrospinal fluid. The communications. Now this ventricle is communicated with the other ventricles of the brain through certain foramens and ducts. That is, anterior-superiorly, it is connected on each side with the lateral ventricle through the interventricular foramen or the foramen of Monro. Posterior-inferiorly, in the median plane, it is connected with the fourth ventricle through the cerebral aqueduct. Now, in this figure, you can see here, this is the lateral ventricle. This is the third ventricle. So, anterior-superiorly, it is connected. This green color is for the interventricular foramen. And in the next figure, the third ventricle in the median plane is connected through the cerebral aqueduct. This green is the cerebral aqueduct. It is connected with the cavity of the fourth ventricle. Now, this cavity has certain extensions which are known as recesses. So, the recesses of the third ventricle are the suprapineal recess, the pineal recess, the infundibular recess, the optic recess, and the vulva. The pineal recess is basically present in between the habenular commissure and the posterior commissure. Now, this habenular commissure is a commissural fiber which connects the two habenular nuclei which are located on each sides of the diencephalon. It is important because this nuclei, it plays role in the regulation of the neurotransmitter, that is dopamine and serotonin. And this nuclei is situated in front of the pineal gland. Another commissure, that is the posterior commissure, is also a commissural fiber, and it is an epithalamic commissure. So in this figure here, all the different recesses related with the third ventricle can be seen. That is, you can see here, this is the pineal gland. This is the habenular commissure. This is the posterior commissure. In between, there is the pineal recess. Above the pineal recess is the suprapineal recess. This is the infundibulum of the pituitary gland, and the recess above is the infundibular recess. This recess here above the optic chiasma is the optic recess. And the vulva would be somewhere here between the diverging columns of the fornix. So the five recesses of this cavity, the third ventricle, are the suprapineal, pineal, infundibular, optic, and the vulva. You can see the various recesses in this figure also. This is the suprapineal recess. This is the pineal recess. Somewhere here is the infundibular recess and the optic recess. This is the infundibular and this is the optic recess. Recesses are, these are actually the extensions of the original cavity, empty spaces. This figure also, it again tries to mark the location of the different recesses. That is, number one is the infundibular. This above the optic chiasma is the optic recess. This is the vulva. This is fourth number is the suprapineal and this is the pineal recess. And you can also see the habenular commissure and the posterior commissure. This is the pineal gland. Now the boundaries of the third ventricle. The anterior wall of the third ventricle is formed by lamina terminalis. It is formed by the anterior commissure and it is formed by the anterior column of the fornix. So lamina terminalis is basically a thin sheet of gray matter and pia matter. It is attached to the upper surface of the optic chiasma. And the basic function or utility of this lamina terminalis, this sheet of gray matter and pia matter, is that it stretches upwards and it fills the gap between the optic chiasma and the rostrum of the corpus callosum. The anterior commissure again are bundle of white matter. It is a tract of white matter fibers and they connect the two temporal lobes of the cerebral hemisphere. The posterior wall is formed by the pineal body or the gland, the posterior commissure and the cerebral aqueduct. So that's all about the anatomy of third ventricle. The remaining portion we would cover in the next lecture.